I'm John Tickles, and welcome to Remote RPGs. Hey, episode 5 already? Wow, I didn't think I'd make it past 1. Okay, how about something special? Today we'll look at an action RPG series that kicks ass. Megaman Battle Network. Yeah, everyone loves these games, right?
It hasn't been easy to be a Megaman fan for the last 15 or so years. Oh, there have been some decent titles, but nothing has ever come close to the original games that consumed so many wonderful hours of my youth. Just like the Mega Man Zero and ZX games, it's just not the same. And don't even get me started on the Battle Network series. Who the fuck keeps buying those?
Oh. Hey, what's that? Alright, well I still like them, and that's all that counts. Yeah, I put this series under the banner of Remote RPGs because to a lot of people, this series was overlooked, and I can kinda see why. First, let's explain what the Mega Man Battle Network series is. The main series spans 6 games, all released on the Game Boy Advance from 2001 to 2006 in North America, with 2 side games on the GameCube and GBA. They follow the adventures of a kid from the future with his NetNavi, but I'll explain that later. Mega Man. Okay, you all know Mega Man, the legend, one of the big runs from Capcom, and one of the greatest video game characters of all time. In short, Mega Man usually lives up to his name.
This guy is unfucking believable.
Despite that, the Battle Network series hasn't received universal love like some earlier games in the franchise. However, I'll deal with the reception of the games later. I got a lot of ground to cover, so let's rock and roll. Get it? Because Mega Man is called Rockman in Japan and roll is... never mind.
You know, you guys are the reason I go to therapy.
The Battle Network series is an alternate take on the Mega Man universe, where the internet advances took priority over robotic advances, which seems a lot more realistic. Let's start by explaining the settings of the games. The games all take place in the late 21st century, where the internet is even more of a vital part of everyday life. Computers run everything from water plants to mining, as most artificial things have their own network inside of them. Everybody has a handheld computer known as a personal terminal, or PET, which acts as a cell phone, and basically everything else including a computer, and it's pretty much an iPhone in 100 years. Each PET also holds something called a NetNavi, a persona with artificial intelligence that works as a partner to the owner of the PET, who's referred to as an operator. Fortunately, these Navis aren't looking to give you an ear sodomy throughout your quest.
Hello, listen, hello.
Operators can also transfer their Navis into most mechanical objects by doing something called jacking in, and they can manipulate things inside or fight viruses with the help of their operators, who send them powers through something called a battleship. Most Navis are generic looking, while some of them are custom made, meaning that they have a unique look and powers. Mega Man is one such Navi, as he and his companion, a regular 5th grader named Lan Hikari, get it? Fight crime. Mega Man was created by Lan's father, a scientist known as Dr. Hikari. It is here that I should note that Hikari in Japanese translate to light in English. Ooh. Anyway, throughout the series, Len and Mega Man fight against a terrorist group known as WWW, or World 3. Clever. Attacking vital areas such as the waterworks, hospitals, or your mother's stove. This group is led by an insane doctor known as, yes, Dr. Wily. Yeah, the Battle Network series is really a throwback to the original series in terms of characters, as Proto Man, Guts Man, Royal, Iceman, and many other classic characters play a big role in the story. There are also references to the Legends games, as well as the X series, but nothing from Captain N?
You get a low score for this game.
The setting in the series is actually really good in my opinion, and it feels pretty realistic and an interesting take on the future. World 3 operates as a really great antagonist throughout most of the games, because they're realistic as a group that misuses technology to their own ends, and creates panic among the masses. However, the adults in this world are pretty pathetic. I mean, come on, no one can beat a 5th grader? Man, we're lucky children don't try to take over the world. There are also many interesting themes in the story, like the coexistence of technology and nature, as well as the basic friendship, maturity, save the world, blah 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 blah. The only drawback is how small the world feels in each game, as each game is only 20 to 30 hours and you can only access around 6 main areas, but the internet you can explore as Mega Man actually compensates pretty well. The stories of each game are pretty basic, but never very deep. There's always some interesting plot twists throughout each game. Like every RPG, it has its darker turns, but nothing too big or memorable overall. The games never take themselves too seriously, and most of the time they capture a lot of the cheesiness of the original Mega Man games. The dialogue in particular was a good indication of this, as it's well written and pretty funny, both intentionally and not, as it suffers from a kind of weak translation. And that stupid portable system limitation where everything has to be abbreviated. Anyway, you have to keep in mind that these games were kind of made for a younger audience, but I can still see an older audience enjoying this game. There are many characters throughout the whole series, and most of them aren't memorable at all, so let's stick to the main ones. Lan and Mega Man, separately, are pretty basic, traditional hero types who live in AC/DC Town. Oh man, this is too easy.
You win!
Lan is a basic protagonist, and a silly kid with a strong sense of justice, and that really covers his whole character. Just think of him as Lloyd from Tales of Symphonia. Mega Man is much more mature, and acts a little like Lan's conscience, and nags him like his mother. Actually, forget what I said, he kinda does act like Navi. Together, Lan and Mega Man have an interesting sibling-like relationship that works as the foundation of the series, but I won't spoil. Meilu is Lan's childhood friend, and she's blander than styrofoam, and simply there's no function for her in the story other than the love interest, and she doesn't affect anything ever. The same could be said for her Navi role. I guess it doesn't help that Lan's mom spends about 95% of the game in the kitchen. Oh Capcom, you sexist pricks. Anyway, Dex is Lan's good friend, who functions mostly as the big dumb comic relief character. That being said, he is pretty good at what he does, and his Navi Gutsman is pretty much the exact same, except that he talks like he's from Texas. Yai is probably my favorite character. She's the child genius rich girl who acts like she's 30 and reminds me a lot of Edward from Full Metal Alchemist. Unfortunately, her role in the story is being rich, which is used when the writers need a way out of implausible situations. Her Navi Glide is basically C-3PO, except, well, a bit gayer. Finally, Chad is a child prodigy and loner who doesn't seem to understand the power of friendship. He's your obligatory jackass and rival, but he does become tolerable as the series progresses. His Navi is Proto Man, who's similar to his operator and pretty freaking cool, but they never do show what's under his helmet. I wonder. I knew it! Now, I'm fully aware that all these characters are one-dimensional and barely developed, but I can see past this for two reasons. First, this game is intended for kids, and secondly, it doesn't take itself that seriously. This is unlike Riviera, which is rated T and takes itself really seriously, but tries to get away with cardboard characters. The characters in Battle Network each play off each other really well, and its simplicity is good if you're looking for a light RPG. However, the game also has legions of uninteresting characters that appear from game to game, who make the game's world feel bigger, but that's about it. Even with these characters, the world still seems strangely underpopulated. Despite that, some minor characters are memorable, like Miss Mari and Pigsby. The majority of the game focuses on switching between Lan in the real world and Mega Man in cyberspace. You can freely explore the entire internet, except for those porn websites, buy equipment, and find huge amounts of secret items and bosses. However, it's a little easy to get lost, and the random encounter rate is pretty unforgiving. Also, the game features an unbearable amount of fetch quests, to the point where no one tells you where to go and you have to blindly explore until you figure out where you need to be. The game also has too much focus on backtracking, and usually uses mazes to artificially lengthen the game. Playing through the story, you control Lan, who moves around the real world and inserts Mega Man into objects. The game then shifts to the cyber world of that machine, where the player controls Mega Man to manipulate objects. This is the innovative crux of the series, as the player has to manipulate objects with both characters in order to solve puzzles, which complements the friendship theme in the series. Most of the areas also feature little twists depending on what area you're in, like the dreaded slippery ice levels, which are god-awfully annoying, and the weather station level, which looks kind of familiar actually. A lot of the puzzles in the game were actually done pretty well, like the changing paths in Color Man stage, but places like Elec Man stage are just intolerable. It's one of those trial and error puzzles, but keep in mind it's riddled with random battles, and the level of annoyance causes it almost to stop me from playing the game entirely. Still, the puzzles in the series were handled well overall, and the variety made sure the games were less repetitious. Now, it's when playing as Mega Man where the RPG element of the game comes in. Running into cyberspace will quickly get you into a random battle where you switch to a 6x3 grid. Here, Mega Man is giving 9 spaces to move around while your enemy is given the same. You move around in real time, dodging enemy attacks and dishing out your own with weak but quick unlimited Mega Buster attacks. Your main form of attack will actually come from battle chips. During the battle, you have a bar at the top that fills at a moderate pace, and when it's full, you can pause the game and quickly send Mega Man battle chips. You have a folder of 30 battle chips, and you can switch around and pick whichever ones you want, kind of like a card game. And in battle, you'll automatically be sent 5 battle chips. From there you can pick which one you want. However, your choices are limited for each turn, as you can only pick multiple chips that have the same kind of code or kind, whatever. Each chip only does a certain amount of damage and covers a certain amount of ground. But you also have to keep elements in mind as well as the additional effects of the chips. The battles themselves are fast-paced and a lot of fun, and I would argue that they're the best part of the entire series. Like other Mega Man games, every enemy has a certain weakness or quirk that you have to exploit in order to defeat them efficiently. Quick reflexes and strategy are both keys to victory. It's a pretty good balance too, as it's easy to learn but difficult to master, as you have to be sure to memorize and be efficient with patterns. The series is a good balance in terms of difficulty. There's a good learning curve as it starts out slow and informational, but it's not too long before you're left to fend for yourself against some pretty tough enemies. However, most of the bosses can be defeated with a little trial and error. It reminds me once again of old school Mega Man on the NES, where you developed a sort of instinct where your fingers move Mega Man out of danger even without you thinking. Everything is colorful and clean for the Game Boy Advance, but the graphics don't change too much throughout the whole series, except for one jump from Battle Network 3 to 4, where the graphics become a little more sprite-y and less blocky. The character designs are done very well. The iterations of Mega Man and Proto Man come to mind as excellent, and everyone's colorful and visually pleasing. However, the series tends to abuse the same sprites over and over. That fat guy in the green shirt keeps following me around, so I'm left to assume that he's either a pedo or he has a million twin brothers. The music in the series is nothing special, but the themes are capable of reflecting the scenes well. They all have this electronic synth type feel that fit well with the setting, but not too many of the songs are memorable. The best ones are the main Battle Network themes, AC/DC Town, and some of the battle music. So yes, nothing special or noteworthy here, but nothing to complain about either. All the games in the series are eerily similar. They take place in the same area, just months apart from each other. This does lead to like a bajillion plot holes, like how can I spend an entire game busting my balls to save the world, collecting amazing battle chips and weapons, but 3 months later I'm back at square one and no one seems to care that I, a 5th grader, has saved the world half a dozen times. At least in Mega Man Legends 2, I know what happened. You sold all my weapons? Oh no. That's fine. That's just fine.
Fatality.
So that about covers the mechanics of the series. And so now that you know all the basics, check out part 2, where we dive into each game and an overall critique of the series.